poet representation.
by Ben Rankin. Simile. This whole poem is an example of simile because the whole thing describes the
Tiger. Author unknown.
symbol.
This whole poem is made up of symbols because it is giving words to describe Christmas.
Author unknown. Irony.
This whole poem is an example of irony because it talks about the fearsome wind not breaking the weakest branch. Author Michael Fander. Narrative poem. This whole poem is an example of narrative poem because the whole thing has a certain meaning to it. Like how the snowman was happy, but he melted and came back. Author unknown. Free verse. This whole poem has free verse in it cause there are no rhymes or rhythms at all. By Amy Ludwig Vangewater. Personification. This whole poem is an example of personification cause it talks about a garden changing cloth which only humans do. By John Foster. Idiom. An example in this poem is let's see things tooth to tooth. An idiom is when you use phrases. Author unknown. Metaphor. Metaphors are exaggerations in a figure of speech. This whole poem is a metaphor because it is all exaggerations. An example is life starts out as a piece of bubble gum. Alliteration. Alliteration is when you use words to describe something and all the words start with a T. Like how they say Tim the terrifying tiger tiptoes. Author unknown. Stanza is when there is a group of lines in a poem to create a verse. An example is after the first paragraph there is a line going to the other paragraph that is an example of stanza. Author unknown. Ambiguity. Ambiguity is when the person isn't sure about something. This whole poem is ambiguity because the person is confused and can't decide. By Tim Shelton. Couplet. Couplet is when there are two lines that rhyme like how it says at the beginning. Across the sky they seem to flow as the winds and currents gently blow. By Rebecca Wiggins. Hyperbole. A hyperbole is when words are exaggerated and not to be taken literally. This whole poem is hyperbole because it is saying I'm the dirtiest man in the world, which is totally an exaggeration. It also says more exaggerations in the poem if you read it. Author unknown. Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is when it's telling you about sounds. An example in this poem is clap clap and stomp stomp. Those are both examples of onomatopoeia. By Natasha Nemi. Ballad. A ballad is like a narrative poem. This poem is a ballad because it has a certain meaning to it and that meaning is to prove that she is real and not fake. Author unknown.